Today, around 450,000 children in the United States are in foster care.
So when you're born alone, but because of all your senses and you know your mom's voice and you know how she smells and you know all of that, there's a critical or sensitive period of bonding between a mom and a baby. And if this baby doesn't have this like bond or with somebody, they feel very alone and unattached in the world. So that's why we snuggle babies and moms smell and we connect, and hopefully bonding takes place.
Only 53% of foster children reunify with their birth parents or principal caretaker.
Now imagine someone who doesn't have an attachment to someone. They feel abandoned, they feel like lost, they're out there. And how do they get this reserve within themselves to comfort themselves?
Like wishing you could see your mom smile again and hear her sing that one favorite song that always calmed you down when things were all messed up.
The earliest that I remember was probably around 5, 6, and that started off with chaos, just a lot of drugs, alcohol, a lot of neglect and abuse in the home, and so shortly thereafter, DIFUS, now DCPNP, came and removed us. I remember the first day that I was removed, I wasn't fazed because I kind of knew that it was going to happen, so I just sat in the car with all these caseworkers around me, very quietly as my siblings, went off and they were screaming and crying and yanking hair and all that.
The single most common factor in families whose children are placed in foster care is not cruelty or rage or sexual perversion. It is poverty.
Three-quarters of the children who come into foster care have suffered neglect.
1 in 11 have been sexually abused. 1 in 6 the victim of physical abuse.
Well, it's just upsetting because it's not fair. They were born into this life, and what makes it that these people got the bad end of the deal, that they were the one who didn't get to stay with their parents or get adopted or just be put into a consistent home with people who genuinely love and care for them.
And then I soon bounced from one foster home to the next, and it was very confusing and chaotic because life decisions are being made for you and you have no say.
On average, children remain in state care for nearly 2 years. 7% remain in the system for over 5 years.
But some foster homes, we walked in, dropped my bag, and the caseworker was out the door, and the foster parent, at that point, it was on them. Some caseworkers will actually do a walk through the house with you so you can see every room, and then they can talk to you after that. Majority of the time for me, because of when I was in foster care, it was a lot of the drop the bag and go.
Many foster parents are unprepared or ill-equipped to deal with the challenging needs of children.
So there were some foster homes where I would act out, and I would come home and all my belongings were just kind of packed in black trash bags by the door, and it was just on to the next foster home.
A totalitarian system run amok, operating under the sinister guise of protecting children from harm.
I remember, sitting in DIFUS offices for hours in the middle of the night because they couldn't find foster homes for me, and it being 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and just putting tables together and sleeping all up and stuff.
Foster children are often taught by their circumstances not to speak up and are conditioned to think abuse is normal.
But every day without food is not normal.
Every hour spent locked in the closet is not normal. Every bruise is not normal.
You're talking about young people that are, birth to 18 years old, that everything is being decided for them, so you have no control of your life. Where you go to school, when you come into school, it's decided on when you're going to eat, when you're going to use the bathroom, so you have no control. And so now that's what I seek in every aspect of my life.
Trapped in the misery of my life, lost in the sorrow of my soul, unable to see the light, unable to see the dawn, to feel, to hope.
I think at points there was an attempt to put my best interest at heart, but you can't do that unless you know the individual. And so these were people that were making decisions for me, and because they didn't know me, they couldn't put my best interest at heart. And so I don't think everything was malicious, but I think that it was just unknown. But then when I did try and speak up, I think at that point it was too late. and I was just kind of like already fell through the cracks and all of that.
Early deprivation or abuse has resulted in complex psychological, medical, and educational needs.
There's all these stages that you're supposed to go to developmentally. You're supposed to try, be independent, have some industry, try out different things. There's all these developmental stages. If you can't go through those stages because you're stuck on one, or because you have such anxiety that you can't work it through and you can't try out the behaviors or do what you need to do among your peers especially, then yes, you don't get to that stage. Or you get to a stage prematurely without all the emotional work that needed to go behind it. So you don't make good decisions. You know, you don't understand or appreciate risk taking. You don't appreciate the process of getting something. You don't know how to act in a business setting or in a school setting. You don't have behaviors. It just all comes from, a lot of it is temperament, nature versus nurture.
43% of foster children do not graduate high school. After graduating the system, 25% end up homeless after 2 years, and more than half are unemployed after 3 years.
So children are egocentric developmentally. They think that they're the center of everything and the cause of everything. So imagine a child who keeps feeling a little connected to somebody and then move to another place. The only thing they think is that they did something wrong, that it's their fault. And they must have done something bad, so that's why they're being moved. They don't have abstract thought. They can't think, well, maybe the situation changed and this woman can't get enough money or whatever the deal was. They don't have the capacity to think that. And who knows if anybody ever explained it to them. So here you are, 3, 5, 7, 9, you keep being changed to all these places. What do you think? You must think I'm a bad person, or nobody wants me, I'm unlovable.
There is a cycle of violence and helplessness innate in the lives of the hundreds of thousands of children in the U.S. foster care system.
Then you move from school to school. You don't know anybody. You're always the new person. How do you make friends? You're not sure how to make a connection. You're not sure any connection you've made has kind of fallen apart. How do you have confidence in making a connection and making friendships and having them last? Why do you think that you keep not being able to sustain them? All these things, we don't know what goes on for these kids emotionally and what they're thinking. And if you don't tell children why something happens, they fill in the blanks themselves. So we don't know what they're filling the blanks in.
They have become so beaten down emotionally that they blame themselves for the abuse.
I think I wouldn't have blamed everything on myself. I feel like I took the brunt of everything and just kind of like stored it inside. And I think if I didn't have that, then it would have made the transition easier, even some of which weren't my fault, and I logically knew that, but emotionally I blame myself still.
The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still.
So if someone is abused as they're growing up and nobody says to them, you shouldn't have to take that, why are you letting this person do this to you? Or you watch other adults allow it to go on. Then what do you think? You think I must deserve this. Must be what I need to, this is the only way I connect with anybody, even if it's in a negative, abusive way.
She took a belt. She started beating me with the belt. Picked up a hanger. She started beating me with the hanger. Picked up a heel. She started beating me with the heel.
And there's not enough of their sense of themselves that I deserve more, I'm a good person, I shouldn't be treated this way, I wouldn't treat anybody. All the stuff that you get from living in a household where there's good emotional health and respect and people treat you well. It's just they're missing it.
Once upon a time, there was a girl who was being torn apart between the homes.
My heart breaks for these kids that don't have the same family life that I have.
She learned not to trust, to always have her guard up.
So then how do you form relationships if you don't have trust in the world and you don't know how to create, and you don't trust that someone will be around for you? Because any relationship they had was for such a short period of time, right? So how do they trust that this one will last, that this one will sustain itself? So it definitely has repercussions. And kids who are anxious and depressed, it becomes a way. So when, they a lot of times they just withdraw into themselves, or they act out to get attention, or they're out there, making very shallow connections with people, willing to do anything to follow the crowd, to try and be part of something. It could go in any direction.
I thought it didn't love me anymore. That it's my fault I'm in the group home. That I'm not worth anything.
Well, imagine someone who goes to 46 different homes. You never have that sense of security and stability, and you never had that attachment to that primary person that makes you feel safe inside.
These kids have no family, and it's something that we don't realize because we're not in that situation.
Well, everybody needs shelter, but you could live someplace very warm, well-fed, and taken care of your physical needs, and not have your emotional needs taken care of, and that's almost as bad.
A lot of times people think that foster kids need a home, and that's not true. Having a home is something, when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's the first thing everyone thinks. But what studies have found is that those that are in foster care need one consistent person that's following them and making sure that they have the support and love that they need.
They all have a wish for one person, one home, and one family.
So if you don't have that person and that core sense of attachment to at least one or several people, then it's very hard for you to separate from it, and you don't connect in the same emotionally healthy way where you feel the world is safe and that there's always someone out there for you and that you can always come back to it if you need it.
It's time for a change.
It's time to shed light onto a system that's crumbling in the shadows.
Foster children aren't as lucky, so we need to help them and make a difference.
We all come from different backgrounds, but in the end, we are one.
We stand together as a family.
Ohana, one home and never alone. Follow us on Twitter at Ohana_PV. Add us on Instagram at OhanaPV. And friend our Facebook page, Ohana PV. Don't forget to check out our website, ohanapv.com, for further information and content.